Hi, my name's Phil and welcome to LabourVision, where we take a look at an aspect of Labour Party policy. And this week, Keir Starmer has been talking about how he intends to save steel in the UK against a backdrop of yet more jobs being lost from the industry. So there are three things really, I suppose, to note here: why the steel industry is particularly important, what the Tories have been doing, and what Labour intend to do differently. Well, one of the most depressing aspects of this week's steel news is that 3,000 jobs are to be lost, even though the government are pumping in £500 million for the privilege. And any industry where there is the risk of job losses of even a few hundred, never mind a few thousand, would need the government to step in and do what it reasonably can to save them. But steel is also a national security issue. We are, of course, reliant on imports of a lot of vital supplies, but the more you are reliant, the more you are vulnerable to shifts in geopolitical alliances. Like if we become reliant on certain countries for our steel, for example, and then we find ourselves in political difficulties with those nations, we risk those supplies. And steel is absolutely vital for our infrastructure, even in the 21st century. We absolutely have to maintain a steel industry for our own needs, even if nothing else. Which does mean that the government can justify higher than strictly needed sums of money to keep an industry going. But this week's news is pretty grim. No matter how you look at it, the government is going to invest £500 million of public money into Port Talbot. I mean, I say invest, I mean give. It will result in 3,000 jobs being lost, but to save the other 5,000. But let's look at the finances here. So £500 million to save 5,000 jobs. So, okay, that's like £100,000 per job saved. It had better save those jobs for quite a few years, otherwise it would have been cheaper just to give the money to the workers affected. In fact, in order for the Treasury to make that investment back in tax revenues, it would need to save those jobs and the profitability of the project for quite a few years. But because it's steel, you can also look at it as a security investment. So the maths is a little more comfortable than it would be for, say, a factory producing pottery or something. But it still represents, yet again, public money being pumped into the steel industry as a knee-jerk reaction and jobs still being lost regardless. It's public investment into fewer and fewer jobs. It's also an investment into electric arc furnaces specifically. Now, Keir Starmer's steel plans involve greening the steel industry with these furnaces. Problem with blast furnaces is, of course, they kick out a massive amount of carbon. But being clear, electric arc furnaces are not an alternative to blast furnaces. They're used to essentially recycle steel rather than produce it. So if the Tories are investing in electric arc furnaces, what's the difference between what they're doing and what Labour are proposing? Well, there are two main differences which are readily apparent and very important. The first is that the Tories keep waiting for things to go belly up before throwing a load of money into the pot and seeing loads of jobs lost. Every time the Conservatives have put some money into the steel industry, it's always come at a time when the plant is about to go bust. Labour are talking about planned investment over the next decade. In other words, they're not ignoring steel until they get a memo saying, oh, jobs are going to be lost, do you want to do something about it? The second important difference is that the arrangements that the Tories have come to, both last week and in the past, have been between ministers and owners. They've completely left out unions, hence the complete lack of consideration for the workers and the communities. The Tories put 100% of the emphasis on saving the UK steel industry. Whenever they, when they talked about it last week, whenever they talked about it in the past, it's always about we're saving the UK steel industry. Now, Starmer has also talked about saving the UK steel industry, but also the need to stop falling behind others in Europe, the importance of the communities supported by the industry, and it's more than just words. Labour's proposal is not just to have a dedicated investment programme running all the time, because you'd think, well, if it's only going to be between ministers and, the bosses at the plant, we're going to end up with the same sort of decisions, aren't we? But first of all, there's going to be that rolling programme of long-term investment, not just at times of crisis, but all of the stakeholders are going to be involved in the decision-making process. So it's going to be industry leaders, but also devolved regions and trade unions. So the discussions will not just involve the bosses, who are important to the process, of course, but devolved regions to make sure that the decisions are in the best interests of the local communities, and trade unions to make sure that the workers involved are also considered. It will mean more investment than the Tories have thrown in, but because the investment is long-term planning for the industry, not short-term sticking plasters as a knee-jerk reaction, it will be investment that's more likely to produce a better return for everyone as well, because it's being considered as part of a long-term plan. It will also mean that all stakeholders are involved in that long-term planning process, unlike the Tories who only ever include the least numerous ones. I mean, apart from anything else, there's something fundamentally undemocratic about discussions of this sort with the small number of people whose focus is profit, may not even live in the country. And you're completely leaving out the representatives of the workers, who most definitely do live in the country, and those of the community whose economy relies upon the work, whom the government are also supposed to be representing, but never do in these situations. But there we are. That is how a Labour government will deliver differently to the Conservatives for the steel industry. If you found the video interesting, please subscribe to the channel, check out our other content, and click the like button while you're there as well. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.